Hello everyone, welcome to mindovermania, where we keep your head above the chaos. My name is Chris, and today I'm recording another Pick a Card reading, where you get to choose your own intuitively channeled messages. Today's topic is going to be, what do you need to hear right now? I decided, due to the new season of Stranger Things coming out, I have Stranger Things themed stickers for you to choose. We have 4 piles to select from today. In order to select your pile or group, put both feet firmly on the ground, take a couple deep breaths, close your eyes, and connect to your spirit guide team. Then, open your eyes, and whichever pile you feel drawn to the most is going to be your pile. It is also possible that you may be attracted to more than one pile. There may be multiple messages for you. Or, if you find that you don't resonate with any of the piles, this may not be the video for you. If you are interested in supporting my YouTube channel, please like and subscribe and comment and let me know what you guys think about the video. I will see you all at your pile. See ya. Hello everyone, you have chosen pile number 1, group 1. And I'm sorry that I rushed the message. It's because my computer said 111 and I was like, oh my gosh, pile number 1 with 111. I had to quickly get that in there. But yes, you have chosen the Eggo waffles pile, and these are going to be your messages on what do you guys need to hear right now. I don't know if some of y'all were waiting for a sign or a signal from the universe, but yeah, I don't know. This could be that moment for you guys. Maybe you have a spark or I'm hearing like a joy. At first I was gonna say like a project coming up, but it feels like more of something is starting to awaken in you, and or you're starting to become more open. I heard like something like the closet or journey, so maybe you had to like get out of a tough space, or you're finally starting to break free of some molds or some things that were holding you back. But in general, I'm feeling good news. I'm also hearing with, Eggo waffles, that was Eleven's favorite food or snack in the show, but I was hearing like, Lego my Eggo, it's kind of like, let go of my favorite thing, you know what I mean? You're finally breaking away from stuff that, maybe you used to got, I heard like beaten up, so maybe some of you guys were actually like in fist fights with people, or there's just some kind of an energy of like people just won't let you be, and you're finally saying enough is enough. Oh my gosh, say hello to Moose, everybody. Oof. Yeah, she's been a little exceptionally territorial. So that might also be a sign for you guys where you've just felt like you're like, man, I gotta like be all over on top of something, and Spirit's just saying like, chill out. You know what I mean? It's all right. Relax. Don't let the energy and anxiety and excitement get to you. Some of you guys, maybe you have a lot of energy and you can't always tell the difference between what is anxiety and what is you just being very energized. You also might be a little too open too. So especially for those of you with big energy or really intuitive abilities, make sure that you are regulating your energy regularly, because sometimes energy can leak out and you can dysregulate yourself. That's something you'd want to talk to me professionally. Feel free to reach out to me on like Instagram or whatever means of communication you feel like. But yeah, just be careful about that, because sometimes it can cause you to overreact or overreach, especially energetically too, where you're like constantly trying to grab something and it like throws off the flow of what you're trying to build or create. Think of it this way. It's like trying to text your dream man before they appear. I don't know, there was nothing wrong with that. Literally, already I was criticizing myself. Yeah, so maybe some of you guys, you just need to hear, stop criticizing yourself. Like, it's okay. Like, just learn to be patient and, you're gonna be okay. Yeah, some of you guys, you might have issues with control too. Oh my gosh. All right, here, 1 second. Come on, Moose. Let's go. Jesus. Yeah. Sorry, just had to kick Moose out because she's throwing a tantrum because people weren't paying attention to her. Cough, cough, me. So that might be another thing too, is you're maybe at this frustrated point where you're willing to just like let every little thing distract you or cause you to just crash out when it's like, relax, it's okay, you know? But like finding a balance between ego and action might also help you guys as well. I feel like there's like more cards too. Yeah, probably because Moose came in and interrupted me. Yeah, I get this really like blaming energy for people external to you, and I think you just need a reminder that it's not your fault, but it's also not their fault either that you can't self-regulate. This isn't meant to be like a criticism. It's supposed to be like, I don't know if some of you guys got ADHD or like you've got something going on in your mental headspace that basically if you don't have things perfect or exact or right, you crash out. Or there's some kind of like this frequency of like needing to let go of the small stuff so that you can get through. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, I look at it this way. I think of like, you know, whenever I'm in like a leadership position, you know, obviously I want everything to be perfect and to go right. The problem is when you're working with people, people are human beings and they've got limitations. And sometimes you have to put up with something that is annoying in order to get to your goal and to get other people to do and understand what you need. And sometimes that means realizing that like, hey, you know what, this small detail, just because that's important to me, if it doesn't improve or get the result that you're looking for, then sometimes you have to set that aside. You know what I mean? And there's something that Spirit's kind of encouraging you to say, hey, listen, you know, kind of like with the Moose scenario, it's like, all right, you know, you're annoyed, but also maybe there's another approach that you need to do, and not stop letting the distractions cause you to shut down. If you know something is coming up and bothering you over and over again, then put the distraction behind a closed door wall and walk away from it for a little bit. You know, it's not, you don't have control over this annoying thing, but you do have control about what you do with your energy, you know? Anyways, let's go ahead and get into the cards. Yeah, control seems to be like a big theme with this pile because it's almost like if you're not in control, you don't feel safe. And Spirit just wants to acknowledge like and give you credit where credit is due. You know, there's something about the fact that you're trying to do your best to self-regulate in an environment that's not sustainable for you or in a mental state. I feel like there's just some kind of mental health care that, you know, you had to let go of either a state of being or something, and it's a difficult transition making those things. However, like there's something about like you need to let go in order to get to receive what it is you need next and to help you get the clarity. Simply because again, you know, learning to not control something, that's not necessarily a mental illness thing. That's something about like loosening up and learning to say, hey, I am not gonna keep all this stuff inside of me anymore. You don't have to carry it. You know, it's kind of like, you know, when people have been through a lot of things and you're sitting there going like, man, how are you still standing? A lot of it's because you have to let it out at some point. And I'm literally getting the vibe of like needing to just move your body. So exercise, drinking water. I'm hearing like clean. So maybe like doing some cleanses or making sure you're just cleansing your energy and clearing that crap out. Because it's just not good, and it will affect your safety and your health long term as well. You don't want to be hanging on to stuff that's keeping you anxious for years and years, because eventually it will start to wear you down. We have, I don't deserve pain. Pain isn't necessary for growth. Yes. Spirit's kind of reminding you, like, what is necessary for your growth is healing and slowing down. You know what I mean? That's more important than trying to push through right now, especially if you're overwhelmed, you're trying to make too many decisions at once. Take it from me, as someone that had kind of a long day today, I said, you know what? If my brain says no, it means no. And so what I did was I sat with it and I let things out and let myself just be and exist in it. And man, like, yeah, stuff came out, but I was finally able to sit and feel it, and it feels integrated, and I feel a lot safer knowing that I actually listen when my feelings are a certain kind of way now. And that kind of helped get me, well, it helped me pinpoint some of the things I'm actually dealing with because I had that clarity, but also I'm learning to trust myself again. and just basically saying, I don't deserve pain, that's something you got to remind yourself. But like, you have to remind yourself that if you're the one that's hurting you, then you have to be able to have that conversation with yourself, because sometimes it's easy to, like, I'm already hearing in my head, you guys, pile number one, you'd be like, well, I wouldn't be in pain if XYZ didn't happen, or if this person didn't do this. And it's like, yeah, okay, but you're exacerbating the pain of other people. It's kind of like if someone kicks you, then you proceed to kick yourself and then beat yourself down, but then point a finger at somebody else and blaming them when you're also perpetuating the same thing and kind of endorsing what they did to you in a weird backwards way. I don't know, that only resonates maybe with some people, but it just really feels like, you know what I mean? It's like you're being your own bully and setback by participating in these dynamics and shame wounds, And it's kind of like learning to kind of mentally teach yourself that separation to say, hey, like, of course you shouldn't be treated poorly, but like, you don't have to sit in that energy anymore. You know what I mean? You're holding on to it to justify the pain when it's like, you don't have to justify the pain. You know what I mean? You need to let go of it. And sometimes it's hard, but like, again, if you're not able to let go of it, there's a reason why. And it's holding you back, whatever issue that is, because I'm hearing it varies per person. We got, it's okay if I let others stay hurt. Their healing is their responsibility. Yes. Kind of similar with the moose thing. Moose is coming in and causing me distractions and disturbances. And I'm like, you know what? That's on her. I've been having issues with her where I've been like, okay, get you off the desk. Get you off the desk. After a certain point, I'm like, okay, no. I've already told you no. And she's, of course, going to cry about it, but after a certain point, you have to put your foot down and say, listen, it doesn't matter if other people are crying. If this is a no from me, then it's a no. And if they're hurt and salty about that, then that's their issue. You know what I mean? If someone disrespects the fact that you say, I am hurt by what you said, and they just don't care, like, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? And some of you guys, you may have come up in a shame-based culture where I'm immediately thinking of moms, right? Where moms will be like, oh, but I did this for you. I'm hearing that word of like, well, I did all these things for you. And I'm sitting here thinking of my own wounds and trauma and thinking like, well, okay, just because you did that thing, that was for you. That wasn't for me. Okay? And there's like that shame that comes in there where it's like, if someone hurts you, they don't get to negotiate how you react to that. You know what I mean? Now, granted, obviously there's a line, but like the whole purpose is if someone else, hurts you, they gotta be able to do that work themselves to prove to you that they're safe enough to come back. You know what I mean? You shouldn't be sitting there trying to do all the labor emotionally, physically, financially on someone else that hurt you, right? They hurt you first, so what are you doing trying to go and help them? You're like, well, it's because I'm nice. That's not being nice. That's self-sabotage. Okay? I was hearing like grow up a little bit, and I was like, that's kind of harsh. Yeah, maybe some of you guys grew up in a really critical environment and developed a very critical sense of self. So I just want to give you guys a big hug because I know what that feels like, and it's not personal, but it's part of the work. I can be lovely and free with or without you. Yeah, Spirit's also reminding you of what you need to know, that you can be lovely and free with or without another person around, okay? And that's where I think like sometimes you guys can be in that helpless victim mode, literally because if you're stuck with this version of yourself in your head, of course you want to be with other people. So you're not distracted by the noise and the trauma and the pain. And some of you guys, like, you don't know how to self-regulate. And of course we need other human beings to self-regulate and to form connections, but like, this is just a reminder from Spirit that you can be lovely and free with or without another person. Okay, it's going to look differently, it's going to feel differently, and it's going to feel like a shock to your system to be alone for a little bit. But trust me, when you start really getting down into the depths, I'm sure you're pretty amazing. You know what I mean? And waiting around for someone else to see that amazing does you a disservice. Okay? Because you're in there regardless of what this inner critic says. And that amazing version of you that you want your knight in shining armor or princess to see, I mean, you're in there anyway, you know what I mean? But usually you have to, face the dragon first, and in this case it's yourself, because otherwise your knight in shining armor is not going to see you. Especially, they're not going to see you the way that you see you best. You've been through all of your traumas. You've seen the work that you've done. So celebrate it and move forward. My response isn't always required. Yeah, sometimes, some of you guys, you just gotta, especially either something political or whatever, sometimes you just gotta be quiet. I'm not gonna lie, there's just something about, like, just learning when to shut up. But I'm also hearing, like, there's, like, I was even feeling like I was feeling it getting caught in my throat. So it's almost like there's some kind of, like, an automated response system where, I don't know if it's something like, for example, you automatically respond when you see something and you're like, well, that's not something I said, when it's like, well, that's what your energy said. You know what I mean? And I'm immediately thinking of, for example, whenever I've had discussions about certain politics where I was talking about, yeah, it's even weird because I'm saying something I keep hearing in the back of my head, like, wounded victim, blah, blah, blah. And it feels like that more negative energy where I was sitting there talking about, yeah, here was an instance of something where I was hurt or someone I know about was hurt. And they just responded in a reactive way that did not look at that person's perspective. I wasn't able to look at that person's perspective because of the energy they showed up with. I basically was just like, yeah, I want to cut people off because you don't care. Like, you missed the underlying thing that I was hurt by what you said. You know what I mean? Like, you didn't care about how someone else has impacted me. You're just going to respond and react with hatred or a specific reaction instead of listening to what I said. And for some of you guys, pile number one, this may be hard to hear because, again, you have a good sense of justice. And in your mind, you think you have a right. I'm hearing, like, an adjusted way of seeing truth, but, like, to me, it's kind of like that's none of your business. If someone else's truth doesn't look like your perception of reality, that doesn't necessarily forego their experience just because you haven't personally experienced it. I'm just thinking of, like, again, like, right now I'm watching, the government do things to people that I care about and having people dismiss it like it's a TV program you can just turn off. That's not the reality. And so this responsiveness or this need to put your opinions out there, just take for account what you are actually saying and who you're saying it to and saying it with. Because, again, it's a very different thing when you're having conversation with people and communicating with them as opposed to just throwing your opinion out there, because, the spirits are saying, like, maybe you've hurt somebody from some of the things you said in the past. And, maybe there's some forgiveness within yourself and within your own community in order to really kind of grasp what's going on. I was seeing ego and I was hearing ego, work on that ego. Because, like, it's okay to make mistakes, but, like, if you hurt somebody, I keep reading, like, always required. It's just kind of like, it's not your place to police other people. You know what I mean? Like, get off your high horse and stop trying to, like I said, this is all tied to control and ego, and you think you're trying to be, like, this knight in shining armor, but it's really kind of not helping anybody. And it's only just serving as more fuel into hatred. The amount of money, okay, my energy's still going back to this. Oh, man. So I don't know, maybe some of you guys have PTSD, or maybe, for example, like, so here's an idea that came to mind was I'm thinking of, like, healthcare. So say, for example, you are very passionate about the healthcare system, and maybe you had an aunt or a sibling or somebody that really got screwed over by their healthcare provider, or there was a doctor that made a bad call, and then now you've been on a holy crusade of saying, like, all right, well, they put all the chemicals in the water and this and this and this and whatever, which I'm like, I am not disagreeing that this stuff is bad, but again, how you respond to that, how you make it productive, a productive conversation versus an unproductive conversation is intention, right? It's about, for example, trying to make everybody around you be vegan just because you believe that veganism is the best way. Like, again, I'm hearing like police, the thought police, where it's like, oh my gosh, like, I really care about this thing. It's like, to me, this isn't like a Democrat or a Republican thing. It's just a matter of, if you're trying to control other people, hands down, you're going to have a much harder time convincing anybody of what you're trying to say or do. You know what I mean? Now, however, that is also different when you are foregoing harm or scientific facts or things that really are harmful for different groups of people, like, trying to use science to discredit queer people, that sort of thing. Again, it's like my response, it's like, well, I need to make sure my truth is out there and my truth is better than yours. Why? It's more than likely not. Now, again, if you actually have some street cred, that may have a different conversation, but again, you don't get to tell other people what to think and feel from an ego-based place. Anyways, moving on. Just had to get that out for some reason. Yeah, maybe some of you guys, maybe you need to like just talk to a therapist. Because some of you guys, like I said, this really feels like trauma too. So you might also be very shy about something in regards to your belief system. And I think it's worth encouraging yourself to really kind of let go of the judgment and shame of whatever your beliefs are and actually start sharing your views on things, because it will make it a lot easier for the people that are like you to find you. Because we are all human beings, and an opinion's an opinion and a fact is a fact. And there's something about like you're trying to tiptoe away from conflict instead of having open conversation and open dialogue about things, because you're trying to not stir the boat. But the reality is when you're being all pent up and frustrated about something, you can't ask questions, you can't grow, you can't do the development work to realize, well, was I right about that thing? Or maybe I shouldn't be around these people because this isn't my alignment or my truth. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like not shutting down the conversation, just saying, oh, something is good or something is bad or keep that away from me. It's being like, well, let's regulate. You know what I mean? If I'm upset about something that was said or done, let's talk about it and let's work through it instead of just shoving our feelings away, because that feels like that's not like necessarily a political thing. That could just be a pattern. And what a lot of people like to do too is, politics are a great outlet for all these other pains in your life that everyone just is like, well, blame the bigger picture, when that's a very different way of approaching things versus someone who's like, hey, I actually want to do something about real change. I'm not doing this because I'm just emotional, about something else, right? Anyways, it's like notice about what affects you personally versus somebody else, and then try to orient your reaction around something. We have the amount of money I have doesn't determine my worthiness. Aww. Okay. So another thing that you guys need to hear, pile number one, is like, again, I know you're special and I know you're powerful and I know you've got all these great things and you're like focused. Yeah, I see you guys like, it's so rigid. Like, it's almost like you have to conquer your demons. You're like, I have to. Yeah, this is all very trauma based, because like with this money thing here, that's a very transactional view of yourself and the world around you. You know what I mean? I see you guys really feeling like, I've got to be. I keep looking at my Archangel Michael statue, and it's like basically, I realize that's upside down for you guys, but like, yeah, it's like made of gold, and like I was looking at the demon underneath, and it was just like the demon that you guys are fighting internally. It's like you're like, I have to be the victor over this thing inside of you, when it's like, is it really? Like, do you really have this good versus evil dynamic, or are you labeling something inside of you that's bad because you don't have any other way to handle it? You know what I mean? Like, I'm seeing right here, I'm really getting this image of maybe some shitty parenting from a parent that's literally like, sometimes when we're growing up, children really internalize morality or consequences and tied to their identity if their parents do something. So you might literally be trying to cut out a demon inside of you, which is just a version of you that didn't have social consequences or acceptance where you were growing up. But if you were put in a different environment, no one would be that upset about it. You know what I mean? Like I'm sitting here thinking of, for example, some of my ADHD symptoms where I interrupt people. I developed that symptom after developing PTSD. So it's very frustrating to me when I interrupt people because my ability to pay attention when people are talking, it just automatically trips. And I used to get so angry at myself. But I'm sitting there thinking, like, okay, if I warn people ahead of time that I'm like, hey, this is part of my disability, it's not that I have a choice, I am not trying to talk over you, I apologize. It will annoy some people, yeah. But that's also something that, if I have a disability, there's a certain limit to what I can do, and I've done my best, I'll sit and I'll hold back a little bit, but just because I have that pacing off does not mean I should never say anything ever. You know what I mean? I can sit and do the work to say, okay, instead of, getting excited and trying to put my opinion in there, I can pause, breathe, wait, double check to see if anyone else has said anything, and then come in and say something, right? It's kind of like, okay, interrupting somebody is annoying, but that's also not worth, like, destroying your worthiness. You know what I mean? It's kind of like being like, hey, you know what I mean? Money isn't everything, guys. And we see this theme throughout stories and, lessons, and for some reason, some people really have a hard time dissecting that because, again, it may take acknowledging that people have dehumanized you at some point in your past. Because when you start feeling like a person, you're going to realize that money is not worth certain behaviors, patterns, relationships. And I just want to say, like, if you think that you are less than because you don't have enough money, please don't. You know what I mean? Your value is worth so much more than the money in your pocket right now. And I'm sure that you guys have really amazing memories with people that think you're special, and there's not enough money in the world that could buy an experience that they have with you or a memory they have with you. Okay? Like, please don't sell yourself short because you're going through a hard time. And even if you do have money, understand it's kind of like the reverse. It's like, okay, just because you can pay for something doesn't justify being cruel to somebody. Like, nobody's made of gold. Unless you want to say Jesus Christ. Yeah. But your character is worth more weight than gold, and reminding yourself of your truth and who you are. Because again, everybody's stressed, and especially again with this PTSD cycle, and there's something about like a lump or whatever. So maybe some of you guys got a cancer diagnosis or something bad happened to somebody, but it's kind of like, you never know what is going on underneath the surface. And yeah, I just keep hearing you're in trouble. And it's like, no, you're not. Yeah, for some of you guys, I just want to say, like, you're not in trouble. There's not some divine, demon out there. Wow. I just figured something out. Wow. Okay, well, this is why I do these pick-a-card readings, because I suddenly had this moment where, I don't talk about this very much, but, so my mom's had breast cancer since I was a kid, and it's been, like, on and off for, like, many years, so it's just been an ongoing thing. And one of the things I remember as a kid that this reminded me of was literally, like, people would straight up tell her that the reason why she got cancer was because God was trying to punish her. And I wonder if I maybe internalized some of that, because it's kind of hard to think, like, how could somebody who loves their family get cancer and go through something like that. And again, I think that's ego, because that's like, that kind of control doesn't really exist, I think of, I'm just getting this image of, like, I think of the people that tell other people that, like, well, if you just heal your body and fix your mind and your body, soul, and spirit, you're gonna be eternally healthy and grateful and blah blah blah. And I'm like, it's such horseshit, because life is life. You know what I mean? Someone could smoke like 6 packs a day and never get cancer. And one of the most amazing people you'll ever meet can get it and pass away overnight. They could get hit by a drunk driver. Anything could happen. So that's where, again, it's kind of like reminding your soul and spirit what being an angel actually looks like. What is the purpose of believing in something divine? Because if divinity is all about punishment and gratitude and all this other stuff, that's all ego. I've never connected to anything spiritually bright and worth following and worshiping that operates that way. But again, it's kind of hard whenever, again, I'm hearing like you're in trouble. Like, who's in trouble? Maybe your ego is. But I don't know. Or like whatever you worship, you know, I'm just feeling like there might be a tower moment for some of you guys, but it's going to be worth the reward in the end. Yeah, something about like maybe you guys, you're going to get rewarded for putting in the work or doing your job. You know what I mean? Like doing the things you're supposed to be doing instead of trying to get involved in all this. Because I feel like for some of you guys, pile number one, maybe you have a habit of getting involved in the wrong crowd, or there's some kind of an entitlement thing, and it really has to do with, yeah, it's almost like a wounding with spirit, you know, a spiritual wound, and being like devoid of happiness, and like maybe you lost something, maybe something was taken from you. Yeah, I'm just hearing like childhood trauma or trouble. Yeah, it's just really hard for you to sustain, I'm hearing like holiness, when it's just like, again, like, this just feels like someone was punished too harshly and it was internalized in a way that manifested into cruelty, you know? And hearing like, well, it was justified because I'm a bad being, because I'm blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I don't think you understand. A lot of that behavior came from bad parenting and parents that had no upbringing, and no one in a healthy environment treats people that way. I'm sorry, but I think you needed to hear that. I'm just like, some of the things that you guys experienced, pile number one, I was like, that's not normal. Okay, and I'm here to tell you from firsthand, like, I've been through my share of things, but when I've seen stuff in other people's families, I was like, that's not fucking normal. Like, no wonder you hate yourself, because that's not how it's supposed to be. You know, and I think it's okay to just admit that your ego's flawed and cracked and hardened because of something bad that happened to you. And that's kind of why, that's the purpose of spirituality. It's supposed to help you heal. It's not meant for control. And anyone who uses it as control, they're speaking from ego. Yeah, I feel like you guys just have a lot to let go of, and that's why it's so hard. Because again, like, you've been through it. I'm not discrediting that at all. And I think it's sometimes hard for you guys to find community and connecting with others because of the harshness and the control and the need to succeed. This is a lot of pressure to carry. Okay, looking at your tarot cards, you've got 8 of Pentacles, Ace of Wands, Queen of Pentacles, and the Hierophant. Yeah, Hierophant, that's all about that traditional energy. But in the upright, Hierophant is also like grounding and being able to connect with tradition and legacy. You know, so some of you guys, maybe your spirituality has legacy to it. You know, so if you actually really connected to your spirit guides and really connected to your spiritual legacy, what do you think that would look like? You know, I think of my family that I was raised Lutheran on both sides of my family. And, you know, one of the things that they always talked about was being humble and being kind. And, you know, it's kind of like not saying much, but being there. You know, they're definitely like more of like the quiet, strong supporters, being loyal, being honest, having integrity, you know, saying what you mean and following through with things. All of those things are spiritual gifts, you know, that you inherit from your family line. And then if you want to go into deeper stuff, you know, like I looked at my family lineage. And so basically it's kind of like taking the good from the bad, you know, because like, for example, if maybe you have immigrant parents and they were really harsh, and judgmental because they were like, well, we came to this country to start a better life, and, you got to be grateful for what hard work we did and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, it kind of ruins your image of what your legacy was, right? But that doesn't mean that the whole culture is bad. It doesn't mean that your parents are necessarily evil. It means they were flawed human beings trying to survive in a really messy, fucked up world, And that's where it's like, again, that survival mode can lead to having really damaging soul wounds and wounds in your heart. With this Queen of Pentacles, she's one of my favorite cards because she's really the most grounded feminine energy in the deck, but also it's kind of like I'm hearing, even if you come from a masculine perspective, the Queen of Pentacles, she's all about abundance and grounding. Like, look, she's pregnant and she has a child. And this is the most earth-based, grounded, reality check type person. I think of like Capricorn people where, they're just really in tune with life, but they're also positive. They're happy. They're easygoing, slow moving, but they're reliable. That, you're always going to be taken care of. And there's always going to be someone that you can trust and find truth in with these types of people. Ace of Wands and Eight of Pentacles. So Eight of Pentacles is, again, tied to hard work, and Ace of Wands is about passion, excitement, energy, creativity. And this kind of feels like more reassurance, again, that if you are working on a project, keep going. You're going to get there, and the work's going to pay off, okay? Like, you've been working really hard, and, I'm almost seeing, like, waving the magic wand. Spirit's kind of saying, like, hey, I'm your fairy godmother. Let me wave my magic wand and support you. It's not going to come overnight, but, again, when you face this ego stuff, things are going to get a lot clearer and easier to manage. All right, we have mindfulness, calm, mind, body, and harmony, focus, meditation with tea time. Sacral chakra, creative expression, sexual energy, emotions, and balance your emotions. Wow, sorry, I have to comment on these. That's really telling with the emotions. Again, this is tied to everything I was saying before. Get grounded, be mindful, really focus on like turning your pain into power, releasing any blocked up sexual energy. Some of you guys, you might just be really stuck, and you could be hormonal. But like, again, learning how to balance your reactions to things will really, really do you good, so that way you can begin to start feeling like you're more in control and in your body, and maybe drink a nice warm cup of tea. I'm thinking of Uncle Iroh from Avatar: The Last Airbender, making sure that you take your time and really, like, not just take your time, slow down, and check out. Like, really actually be with yourself. And sometimes that's hard, but, like, I mean, if you got to do the ad blocker or the app blockers, if you got to, like, force yourself to go sit outside and do nothing for 15 minutes every single day, twice a day for some of you, then do it. Because it will pay off in the end when you start learning to... I think there's kind of like a truth about yourself that's going to get exposed to you when you start really getting back into like a healthier mindset. And again, I'm guided back to this Hierophant where it's about like, maybe you need some kind of a discipline, martial arts, a religion, a pattern, something to just kind of ground you in reality and earth, so that way you can feel a little bit more in control. That's why some people really like religion. Being able to kind of have those rituals and routines and doing that stuff. If you're a very ritual-based person, that's kind of exactly what you need, because it helps you feel like you're in control. Even if you technically aren't, it helps that version of your brain that's really struggling. And so, that would make sense why certain personalities go towards organized religion more than the more fluid, new agey stuff. All right, we've got sacrifice, giving up something now for a future reward. Divine timing, everything has a higher purpose. Wisdom, knowledge gained through experiences or from a wise counselor. Resolving issues, solving inner conflict with others, healing past trauma. Fear, expecting the worst, afraid of failure, wasting time on negative thoughts. And confession, releasing a secret, pursuing virtue through honesty. Wow, all of that's kind of in alignment with what I've been talking about. And it was weird too, because with the egos, I immediately got hungry. You know, there's something about like maybe you need to start nourishing your body. Because with this fear is just what's draining you and killing your drive. You know, thinking that, oh, it's not gonna work out, it's gonna be bad, or like someone's watching me or whatever. And it's like, I mean, yeah, people are watching you, and yeah, sometimes there's bad people, but like, let Archangel Michael take care of the bad guys. You know what I mean? Some of you guys, you gotta release the ego of thinking you can stop every evil person by like, again, I'm hearing like loading up your gun and blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, to a certain degree, you gotta protect yourself, but like, unless you intend on moving into a war zone, the likelihood of you getting assaulted and attacked by people, like, you have to be very careful about your surroundings and your decision making, but like, that doesn't mean you gotta live in fear every single day either. You know, there's something about divine timing here where it's like there's a higher purpose to a lot of things that happen in our life, and you gotta take the time to sit and ground your energy so you actually can enjoy life again. You know, with sacrifice, I do get this wound related to sacrifice where it's literally like you're sacrificing your youth, your time, your money, your energy, all because of fear. You know what I mean? You're sacrificing relationships for a future that, like, you know what I mean? Like, are you actually building a future or are you running from it? You know, divine timing. Everybody's gonna have their time to shine. Everyone goes through bad times. Everything, like every pain can be turned into something, you know, when the time's right. And when you heal, you're not gonna remember this. You're gonna be focused and you're gonna be happy. You know, let your wisdom guide you to where you need to go next, okay? And like confession, maybe you gotta confess the truth to some people. Maybe people who didn't realize you had PTSD or didn't realize that you were having a hard time. I think of the interrupting thing where I'm like, this is why I tell people, because somebody might be out there thinking like, you're this controlling piece of shit, when you're just like, I had no idea I was offending you that much. You know what I mean? I didn't realize that you thought I was being critical and harsh when I said this. You know what I mean? Like, be able to admit your mistakes, and others are going to be a lot more open to forgiving you. You know, and watch as people start to realize and awaken more to that beautiful, loving energy inside of you. Oh, and I'm also feeling spiritual healing. Oh, gosh, that felt really good. Yeah, just being able to, like, just say how you feel. Instead of being like, let me tell you how things are, say, like, I feel this. Bring it back in, you know? And you're going to hate it because it's going to feel uncomfortable. But again, that's because someone else taught you that being a freaking human being isn't normal when it is, right? Someone stole your humanity, and, you know, you're doing yourself a disservice to continue to allow their hierarchy in your brain to keep you down. Resolving issues, yeah. Maybe you gotta resolve some stuff with some family members or maybe some past traumas. But again, all in divine timing, it's all gonna work out when it needs to. Okay? Just take the time, do the work, and you're gonna be rewarded for it. Oh, that was a long talk, but I feel better, and I hope you guys do too, pile number one. Thank you so much. Please like, subscribe, and comment down below. If you enjoyed this reading, thank you guys so much for supporting my YouTube channel. And if you're interested in a personal reading from me, you know, links are in the description down below. I also have other pick a card readings if you enjoyed this one. Anyways, y'all, thank you so much. See you later. Bye. Hello everyone, you have chosen pile number 2 with the I'm on a curiosity voyage, I need my paddles. And these are going to be your messages on what you need to hear right now. I don't know if you guys got struck by a sudden burst of inspiration or energy, but I'm feeling it. I feel like this pile, you guys have a little bit of a sense of humor or just some kind of a curiosity or enjoyment of life, I guess I'll say. So I'm already excited for your pile because I feel like you guys are in a much better energy than you used to be. I'm seeing books, so maybe you like to read, or maybe you're a writer. I'm seeing a lot of just knowledge or wanting to, like, I'm hearing like reach out and start to like connect with others. which feels like a shift. So maybe you guys were previously a nerdy introvert, but now you're suddenly realizing, oh wait, I don't have to like hide about certain things. Yeah, I'm getting kind of like this energy of like really starting to lean into I'm hearing like your nerdiness, but more like your bookishness. So say for example, you're like, oh my gosh, let me tell you about the science behind your brain, right? And you finally found that one weird subreddit that suddenly has all your interests, and you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize so many other people felt the same way. Oh my gosh. Or like, for example, I think of the people who analyze Disney movies from when we were young and then tying down to like the different pipelines of people liking certain things. It's like, it's not official science, but you know, it makes you feel a little less alone for some of the weird crushes that you had on as a kid. And then I was like, oh wait, did all the gay people notice the certain thing? Oh. Anyways, though, what are your messages? Oh gosh. I know, I make these YouTube videos mostly for me, but, you know, I figure if it helps you guys too, it helps you guys. And I just had a personal scenario come up in my head, and they're like, they're coming back! And I was just like, oh god. But I'm just laughing about it just because it's kind of like, you know how, like, when you're a kid, and you want something so bad, and you're like, man, if I could only get that thing, I'm gonna save up my allowance, or I'm gonna bug mom and dad for it forever. And then like when you finally see the Christmas present hidden under the Christmas tree, or when you're right about to go meet your crush or whatever, and then suddenly you're like, no, fuck this, I don't want to do this anymore. And you're like, what? You mean this whole time you hyped it yourself up for this thing, this big moment, and you're like, no. That's the vibe I'm getting. So like, again, maybe it's kind of like you sat there like, okay, I'm seeing like Rocky, you know, he's training for this thing, and all of a sudden it'd be like he's about to go into his final round in battle, and all of that hype causes him to just go, no, I don't want to do this anymore. And you're like, why? Or like, you're like, no, I'm not gonna be happy about it. I'm not gonna be happy, I'm gonna be salty. Like, I can't even read the cards. I'm just like, it's okay, like, it's a good thing. So maybe some of you guys, you have to like reprioritize or reprogram your brain to say it's okay to be happy. You know, like, I don't know, I think of when I was in a millennial, when like, you know, growing up, you weren't allowed to wear nerdy shirts, or you were gonna get made fun of or punished or whatever. And like now it's like the cool thing to wear whatever you like, you know, because nobody gives a shit. You know, and then it's suddenly being like, wait, someone else has the same nerdy obsession as me. It's kind of like your little kid I'm almost feeling like that re-experiencing that trauma again, you know, of being like, nope, I'm gonna get punished if I like that person that's too close to home, you know, too good to be true. Nope, I'm gonna get bullied again. And I'm also seeing the word need, like, you know what I mean? There's something about like, you have to like it's okay to need some kind of person or personality in your life, you know what I mean, to keep you grounded. Like, I'm just sitting here thinking of myself, where I was like, okay, for the longest time I thought like, okay, I like art, but it's just a hobby, you know what I mean? It's just a hobby. And then like, when I finally got away from the people I was around, and I realized how much I hated life without music and art and drawing and creativity, like, it literally, I was like, no, I need to be around creative people. Like, this isn't just like a, oh my god, like, you know what I mean? Like, you can't ever be productive ever again, and you're never gonna make money. It's like, no, like, guess what? This is a fundamental piece of my personality. Shop. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sorry, I want to maintain keeping my soul. Thank you very much. Just because you are capable of foregoing it does not mean that I am capable of it, and it is a mighty need. Thank you very much. You know, I'm on a curiosity voyage, and I need my paddles. You're not going to be getting anywhere on that voyage if you don't have paddles. And I'm sorry, if there's a certain kind of person or personality trait that you need help with, then sometimes you need to allow other people to like you, especially if you like them. I'm just almost seeing, like, I'm just thinking of Loki and Thor. You know what I mean? Where it's kind of just this energy of being like Black Cat and Golden Retriever boyfriend, and you're just like, no. No, I don't like you. No, I'm gonna stab you. Okay, let me help you get up there. Okay. Alright, we're gonna take care of each other. Okay. Still avoiding looking at these cards. So maybe let me look at some of the other cards first, because that will help. Because literally my brain is like, no. We've got false person, fake, hiding true character. Ooh, interesting. Make a wish, manifest dreams to reality. Bad health, illness. Ooh, maybe someone's gonna get like a fever or get really, really sick or something. I'm seeing like meditation, love, herbs, nature. Yeah, someone needs, maybe someone gets a bad rap or something. So maybe again, they have mental health issues. I'm seeing with teeth, so maybe someone grinds their teeth in their sleep, or there's Band-Aid. Yeah, so it's almost kind of like I don't know, maybe someone's going to be recovering in the hospital and they might call you. I'm not laughing because this isn't funny, but it's kind of like, I literally see it as kind of like maybe someone has like a fake near-death experience and they're just like, all right, I love this person, okay, bye. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, I just wanted to call you before I die. And then you're like, what do you mean you're gonna die? And they're like, I'm on a curiosity voyage, or I was. Maybe someone overdosed, or again, I'm seeing like a fever. But it almost feels like this person overreacts. And this also could be you too, where there's something about like, you're like, oh my god, I'm dying, when you're like, okay, I mean, you have the flu. And yeah, people have died of influenza, but like, just take some meds, go to bed, eat some soup, and you're gonna be fine. You know what I mean? Like, there's kind of like this dramatic energy. I'm also seeing Make-A-Wish, so again, it's kind of like, I'm feeling like cancer of some kind, and you're manifesting something. It's kind of just like, you don't need to be in bad health to get what you want. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like maybe you guys, again, you have that resistance to like, well, I try, but things don't always go my way, and you try to be like really humble about things, but then you're kind of like, well, maybe if I wish for my birthday, maybe I wish for on a sunny day, I can go out there and get some ice cream. And Spirit's like, god damn, you're allowed to want to go on a cruise ship. You're allowed to want to go meet your favorite celebrity. You're allowed to want like nice things. Like, God forbid, like some of you guys, you gave up because it's kind of like, you're like, well, I gotta keep the peace, so I gotta stay small, but like, can I like give you a hug? Like, I'm thinking of like, so my favorite celebrity is Tom Hiddleston, and I've always wanted to have tea with Tom Hiddleston. You know, I feel like he would be such a great like conversationalist to just sit and drink tea. And I'm sitting here thinking like, man, like, that would be kind of fun. You know, if that happens. I don't know what I'd have to pay, or if just life would bring that to me, but you know what? If that's my Make-A-Wish dream, great. You know, Spirit's just kind of saying, like, you don't have to be in an adverse situation in order to feel like you deserve good things. You know what I mean? Sometimes, like, a rainbow appears and it just appears. It doesn't have to have this big divine reason, or you gotta burn all these candles and burn relationships and do all this crazy. It's literally like, it's okay. We've got pleasant message, good news. Yeah, I'm seeing like some loving hearts. So maybe you're gonna have like, maybe an old friend comes back, or I was hearing old wound. So maybe like someone's gonna confess something to you about, oh, I'm feeling really like, like, yeah, maybe someone hurt you really bad, and you were depressed about something, and they're going to come out and they're going to confess something to you about maybe why they did something that hurt you. I'm getting like, I'm blushing, I'm feeling heat. Yeah, there's just something pleasant coming your way. You know, you're going to get not an apology, but I'm hearing like an understatement. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, probably because an apology is not going to be worthy enough of what this person owes you, but like, you're gonna get good news. And I'm seeing like a letter, so maybe you're gonna maybe win a court case, or maybe there's something like I don't want to say money in the mail, but this letter is going to be really important to you and it's going to mean a lot to you. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, I think of like, maybe you helped somebody out in the past and then you find out what they did later on in life and you're going to go, oh my gosh. And like this false person, this is someone you don't know. I don't know. Maybe you made someone's wish come true. Aww. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, there's something about like maybe someone's wishing that you didn't see them as the bad guy anymore. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe someone's gonna reveal the truth to you. You know, maybe you thought someone was bad or heartless or didn't care. I'm just saying your manifestations are coming true. Um, we've got abundance, success, realignment, recognition. Aw, yeah, see, I didn't even want to look at those cards. They weren't even bad. All of that was good. But it was almost like you had to go through these bad things in order to really get in alignment to your truth and what counts and what matters. You know what I mean? Like I'm hearing like admiration, you know, maybe you're a really admirable person, you know, and it's kind of just being like, hey, like you're successful. You know, you have money coming your way if you're not in that situation right now. Like you are abundant. Like you have a lot of great things. You have gifts. You have a mind, a spirit that are so wonderful, a body. And it's just time you recognize it, you know? And that's kind of like where that realignment is happening. Like you're changing on your journey. You're distracted and you've been distracted for a while by bad health issues, and I think it was just to get your mind off of this other situation for a bit, you know? You're like, I need my paddles. It's like, okay, but like you didn't need to do it that way. Manifesting your own mental illness. Shit. We've got 3 of Swords in reverse. Ooh, okay. 9 of Wands. I was hearing like fake Cancer. I also heard fate. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know why Cancer keeps coming up. Cancer came up in the last last reading. But, yeah, maybe someone got a Cancer scare. Oh, God. And it was a false alarm, Jesus. But yeah, like, so 3 of Swords upright is usually like heartbreak or whatever, but like, I feel like maybe in the reverse, like maybe putting some distance between you and this person or these problems or situations kind of helped you heal a bit more. And I'm seeing with like the 3 swords, it's kind of like, I don't know if 3 is a special message for you or special numbers, but like, again, I'm almost seeing like, a claw or kind of just being like, it's kind of like it's over. You know what I mean? It's like now you have swords. It's kind of like, I imagine like, you know, normally the depiction is a heart with 3 swords stabbed in it. And it's almost like you pulled the swords out and you're like, okay, my heart's intact. Now I've got 3 swords. What do I want to do with them? You know what I mean? And it's kind of like you earned each one. You overcame each obstacle, you know, and now you have them. So you can put them on display, you can use them, but like it's kind of like whatever lessons you learn from a recent experience, those are going to be your allies in the next upcoming phase of your life. Again, I'm seeing with like stacks of books where maybe you're doing some research, maybe you're just, I'm seeing like you're just holding on to knowledge or something, or you're going to get really interested or passionate about something, maybe reading or writing books. Yeah, we've got 9 of Wands, the Hermit in reverse, and the Fool in reverse. So I'm seeing you guys are going to start opening up a bit more. You know, maybe you're going to talk about stuff online. It's kind of funny because, like, so this card, you know, it's a gamer girl kind of looking like she was caught. And now it's almost like you guys are coming out of that hermit phase where you're taking the glasses off and being like, okay, you know, I was foolish in the past. You know, I was reckless. I did these things. It's almost like I'm seeing you guys maybe being a lot more honest about your, I'm hearing like about integrity. So maybe it's going to show people that maybe you weren't shit. You know, maybe people put you on a pedestal and you're going to realize that, you know, there is a lot of chaos going on, you know, and that there probably is a lot for you still to learn, but that doesn't make you a bad person, you know? And I see like with the star here, it's kind of like, yeah, it was weird because like in the reverse, I was kind of like, oh, like I heard like one of those noises of like, you know, like kind of, wow, this person isn't that great. And it's kind of like, don't poo poo yourself. You know what I mean? I'm kind of just being like, okay, but you just started your journey, you know? All right, so what that you made a social faux pas? Learn your lesson and get over it, you know? There's something about like, don't stop your success because you're afraid of other people criticizing you, because people are gonna bitch and complain no matter what. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, you know what I mean? I almost feel like, for example, we'll use political correctness, right? Where it's kind of like, all right, we want to do our due diligence to say the right thing. But my God, if you stopped your advocacy work because you weren't politically correct enough, please tell everyone criticizing you to go fuck themselves, because we need people that are taking the time. I need my paddles. Like, I'm sorry, I need people that can help do the work. And, you know, realignment with what truly matters is most important. You know, get in line with your spirit. Get in line with what really matters to you. You know what I mean? And, you know, go outside. Remind yourself that just because people are bitching and complaining online about something that you said, look at the people you've helped in your life. I mean, look at this. You know, pleasant message. Like, you changed someone's life. You know, you turned your health around. Or maybe you turned this person's health around. Like, I don't know. Again, like, I'm also sitting there thinking, like, you know, maybe like a grandma in the hospital, or like, you know, maybe you took the time out to support somebody. And it's kind of just like that recognition, like, you need to recognize that you're a good person. You know what I mean? Like, okay, maybe you made one mistake. Maybe you looked at someone the wrong way. You know what I mean? You're not a fake person. You're not a fake good person just because you're not up with the trends of what's correct and not. You know? Like I said, if you did something truly awful and hurt somebody, okay, own it. But like, recognize that you do own it. The fact that you're even bothering at all is more than what a lot of people are doing right now. So, I'm sorry. Tell them I'll fight them and mind their business. You know what I mean? Like, mind their business and be like, okay, thanks, noted. You know? Because we don't have time to worry about, you know, someone messing up pronouns when we've got literal people, like literal horrible things going on, you know? And if that's not your alignment, I get it, but then I'm probably just not the person for you. So, but yeah, please respect people's pronouns. I'm not saying completely ignore that, but you know what I mean? Like, priorities. Yeah, this Nine of Wands too, this is also telling me, like, you know, you also, I don't know, I'm hearing like gathering an army, but like, I'm seeing you're getting all of your ducks in a row. You know, things are really going to be stacked in your favor. So you're going to have a lot of firepower with whatever you're working on or whatever you're going to be successful at. Like, you've got a lot of options to look at too. So, yeah, I'd say good for you guys. Oh, that's crazy. You got the Three of the Three of Swords in reverse again, twice. We got the Queen of Swords in reverse. And the Creator or the Magician in reverse. Interesting. So I view this Queen of Swords in reverse as a positive. It's kind of like learning to put your sword down, or maybe putting the false sword down. You know what I mean? So it's like, I feel like knowledge is power, but you're kind of like learning to start, like, you're learning to be strategic. You know what I mean? Because like, anytime you're trying to like maybe win somebody over or win a social situation, for example, maybe you're learning that you're like, hey, maybe knowledge isn't power at this time. Maybe my soft skills are more important. Maybe it's how I say things or showing up in a certain kind of way does matter a little bit more than my knowledge or my ability to cut through to the truth. You know, because some people can't handle truth. You know what I mean? That's why we use stories. There's a lot of great wisdoms that come through metaphor and exchanging. And I'm also hearing changing too, you know, because I think people watching who you become over time matters just as much as the hurt. You know what I mean? I think it kind of like really means a lot more to people when they see that you do change, that you can heal. And again, it's not like the sword ever goes away, but like, You're learning to be like, hey, I'm kind of retired. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want this kind of reputation anymore, of always being sarcastic or whatever. I'm seeing with the butterflies. Like, yeah, maybe some of you guys are learning to get in, you're going to be in your whimsy state. And I think, I heard the word bad. Like, I don't know, maybe you were the bad person, or maybe a villain, or I don't know, there's something, what is that bad feeling? You know what I mean? Because, no, yeah, I just see that like bad health. Yeah, I don't know. I just see you really appreciating life more. You know what I mean? Maybe because maybe there are bad things going on around you and you're watching a lot of stuff and you're like, hey, you know what? Now's the time to be soft with people because you never know what people are going through. Okay, that makes a lot more sense because I was sitting there, I was like, hey, am I saying something bad's gonna happen to Pal too? It's like, no, no, no. If anything, you're just gonna be really impacted and emotional by the stuff that's happening to the people around you. And that's where, you can't always, a sword's not gonna make someone's battles any easier. You know what I mean? Yeah, and some of you guys, you might be better off than some of the people around you. And so that's why, like, taking the time to be grateful and finding your way to give back by pouring your heart into people to help them be distracted from the pain, I think, is really going to help people too. All right. I feel called to read up on what the Three of Hearts is in reverse, okay? Because I'm just sitting here like, we got it twice, so I have to do my due diligence. It says, moving on, being stuck, and healing. It says, when it's reversed, it hints that your period of heartbreak may have come to an end if you let it. That doesn't mean the pain isn't there. It just might have lessened or shifted. Don't let overthinking or suppression of the situation prevent growth and healing. Grief has a way of dragging you down and making you settle, but try not to let that happen. Remember that after every fire, new life blooms. Yeah, wow. So this might be like a major breakthrough for you guys. I'm hearing like jealousy and betrayal. I'm seeing like with this ghosty, all the swords are in their head, and so they're just holding their heart, and maybe you're finally able to let go of that, for something more positive. I do see you guys taking more time. You're having a hard time making choices, and Spirit's just saying, just wait. You know what I mean? Like with alchemizing all the things, like you've already done all of the lesson learning and whatever. Now's the time to wait and integrate. Focus on planting gardens and smelling the roses, because you have great things, but there's an obstacle coming up that, like, again, with this bad health illness, it could be family, it could be some kind of a wound, or it's kind of like just saying, hey, take it easy. You did all this work to get where you're at now. Keep going. You're making progress, but like don't push yourself past the point of no return, because you already hurt yourself and did all the work to get out. Now's the time to, find out your special surprise and secret and wait for your marching orders. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's gonna be okay, guys. It's gonna be a little bittersweet soon, but like, it's okay. You're gonna be fine. And so is this other person, I think. Some of them will be, some of them won't, but that's not my call to make on a general reading. Anyways, thank you guys so much. Please like, subscribe, comment down below if this resonated with you. Sending you guys lots of love. And, I really appreciate the energy you've put with watching this video. Yeah, sending you guys a lot of love, wishing you guys the best luck and sending you guys well wishes and good health. Yeah, we're all in this together, y'all, and sending you big love and big hugs and hope you get everything that you want and wish for. I will see you guys later. Take care. Bye. Hello, everyone. You have chosen group number 3 with the 11 and Will sticker. And these are going to be your messages on what do you need to hear right now. Super interesting because I heard the word like pronouns, so I don't know, maybe someone is doing a little bit of a flip-flop gender thing, or when I was first initially choosing stickers, when I picked this one, I was immediately thinking of, oh, like there's some kind of like a duality energy here where you've got like, the pink and then the upside down. There's a lot of different metaphors you could take, but it's almost like I'm feeling like switching identities or two different people that are polar opposites coming together. I also think of the Lover's card in tarot. That's kind of the vibe of this could be your vibe, maybe another person, maybe you attracting the opposite energy. Or again, maybe you're doing that shadow work and looking at those deeper reflections within yourself. In any case, let's get some messages of what do you need to hear right now, pile number 3. It was funny. Was immediately I was feeling like you need someone to like talk dirty to you or someone to kind of like flirt with you a little bit. I don't know. There's something that's kind of like taboo, or maybe you are dealing with something that is in your shadow self that you kind of need to come out a little bit. I'm kind of feeling like devil's in the details, or just kind of this energy of like flirting with disaster, or like it's kind of like I'm hearing like what you want wants you, but kind of in the reverse thing. So I kind of think of like, say for example, you have a fetish or a kink that in a normal context would not be okay, but it reveals something about your light self as well. So it's kind of like learning to kind of work and integrate your shadows in a way that they're productive. So for example, say you have an affinity towards alcohol or things that are maybe not the best for you. It's like learning to take that same energy of like, well, instead of doing a self-destructive habit, what can I use this energy towards instead? How can I use this towards self-improvement? But I think it's also about accepting the upside down for what it is, in this case, if in case you haven't watched Stranger Things, it's about this kid named Will who gets abducted and stuck in this world called the upside down, which is an alternative reality to the current reality, and it's dark and it's twisted. And like, no offense, even if you put like some rose-colored glasses on, the upside down is still a dangerous, nasty place, and so it's about learning to not try to cover things up, but allow things to be as they are. A Demogorgon can't be tamed, right? And so, for example, if you have shadow aspects of yourself that are Demogorgons, it's about understanding them and learning what does that Demogorgon need to stay on the upside down. You know what I mean? Or finding ways to really, find your inner 11, being able to find ways to step up and stand against things like that, because just because something in our brain feels scary, if you've got an 11 that knows how to cast away the demons, then you're able to better manage and take care of yourself. I also feel like some of you guys, you over-explain things to a point where you're just like, oh my gosh, people get it. Like, I'm not saying like, don't beat yourself up for over-explaining, but it's also kind of being like, you kind of come across as traumatized explaining basic things to people. And maybe you guys have been through some shit. That's kind of the vibes I put down here. So I'm assuming, in case you're new here, we talk about the real stuff here, but at the same time, it's also kind of being like, it's okay if you're a little bit weird or quirky or different because you went through some shit, You don't have to think of yourself as lesser, because of something you went through, and I think of like Elle, where, she's everybody's favorite, even though she started off as this girl trapped in a laboratory with a shaved head, It's kind of like, it's okay. If you came through the world of the upside down, you're gonna have some scars and some crazy tattoos from the experience, Okay. Ooh. But I do feel you guys are coming out of something. But this feels like really specific, because for some reason, this pile really feels more of like an energy check-in rather than like about specific scenarios. Because with the 7 of Swords in reverse, and then you got the 7 of Wands upright and the Seven of Swords reverse. So you got 7, 7. We got the Lover's card. Look at that. Surprise, surprise. Two of Wands and then the Ace of Pentacles in reverse. Yeah, my eyes drawn to that Seven of Swords in reverse, where at first I was thinking, like, okay, I've been trying to get better at my tarot reading because, surprise, surprise, I'm much better at reading energies and I use cards to kind of just ground me. But the more I actually learn about the cards, the more it gives me additional perspective. And what I'm kind of trying to determine with the reversal here of this card is, the Seven of Swords is all about stealing, manipulation, lying, getting away with something. And in the reverse, it's almost kind of like I'm seeing you getting away, but it's kind of like this feels like more of like a version of yourself, like a piece of your subconscious, right? So when we were talking about the upside down and dealing with the shadow aspects of the mind, for example, like when you're looking at this, you're seeing, okay, this person has 5 swords here, and then it's almost like they're getting away just in time for these 2 swords to drop. You know what I mean? But that said, just because they have these swords doesn't mean it's not dangerous. And so in the reversal, the way I'm kind of interpreting this is it's almost like you need to let go of the self-sabotage or this version of you that is constantly trying to like avoid something or someone. You know what I mean? It's kind of like there's this relationship or thing in your head that you're dodging triggers. You know what I mean? But you're not even aware that you're doing it. You know what I mean? So I'm thinking of, for example, what's something I learned about recently? Oh, yeah. So this is something I recently worked through within my journey and myself, where I was playing a video game called Banished, which is a city builder, right? And I was using, the game to try to figure out, okay, I keep going through cycles of my population starving, right? And so I want to try to leverage this game to figure out where am I screwing up in the game that is applying to real life. Because I've been using resource management sims and games to kind of figure out for myself in my life, where am I not prioritizing energy? Why is it that I can play a game and do well, but in real life I'm mismanaging things? And I like this game because it kind of forces you to have consequences on long-term decision making, right? So basically, if I don't plan out my food sources appropriately and time it right, if people starve, they start dropping like flies. You know what I mean? It's very harsh and unforgiving on, not doing last minute things, and then things fall apart and then you're trying to play catch up. And what I realized was I was overexpanding. I was trying to do too many projects at once, and then my people were going out there and building things and making mistakes, and then everything was slowing down, things weren't catching up, and then I wasn't prioritizing the right things. So because I was able to identify that, I was able to sit down and look at my life and go, wow, you're right. I actually do know how to take care of things. The problem is I keep popping out. I keep trying to overexpand. It's like I was trying to avoid that slowing down, because that slowing down meant, well, what if I never get it done? So I have to do it, right? And so then you're constantly in that state of dodging things that are invisible, and it's screwing up your ability to build something right. You know what I mean? Now, when you got the Seven of Wands here, look at this ghost. You know what I mean? She's sitting there with this wand, Seven of Wands. I believe that's like the resilience one in tarot. And so basically, this is kind of letting your spirit guide's letting you know that like you have the ability to overcome a lot of these triggers. You know what I mean? Because especially when you start learning more about your mind and the layout of it, it suddenly helps you realize when you're trying to work through these things that it's just like the upside down. It's a parallel universe to what you're seeing in the light. It's just the same in the darkness. You know what I mean? So I think of it as, how do I want to describe this? Give me a second. Okay. So I think of it as there's like the healthy side of you, and then there's the survival version of you, right? Where if everything is going right in your life, of course you're going to be nice. Of course you're going to be doing different things. Now, not everybody's going to be nice, but like assuming, 9 times out of 10, most people, when they're provided with the right amount of resources, good healthcare, great support systems, they're going to be good. You know what I mean? But the problem is there have been plenty of times in human history when we don't have access to those resources. We have to do things that aren't necessarily good in order to survive. So then that develops the upside down. And so it's about being able to look at yourself that whenever a version of you, it's like sending 11 or Will to the upside down, you're suddenly going to realize, oh shoot, it's not nice down here. And it's like, well, yeah, because it was never supposed to be nice. It was a version of you, like L, that is trying to go and connect with Will and rescue your inner child from the Demogorgon, right? It's literally that same analogy that whenever you build resistance to understanding, hey, actually, I'm 11, I have superpowers, that I can go down there and I can go find Will and bring him back. That's what gives the power away from your triggers and from these versions of yourself that you learn to kind of hide away or keep away from yourself. It's about being able to look at an angry version of yourself or version of you that you maybe consider lesser. It could be a version of you that developed out of survival, out of necessity, from not having your needs met as a kid, or never being taught the skills of how to show up right. Like think of 11. People aren't mad at 11 for talking weird when she grew up in a laboratory. Do you see how everyone's really accepting of her and compassionate of her? So if you've got a version like 11 in yourself that is struggling to connect, maybe that's a sign that you should have compassion for that version of yourself. You know what I mean? Will was traumatized and kidnapped in the Upside Down. And then when he came back, he wasn't the same. Are you going to be mad at Will because of that? No. So when you start looking at your brain and behaviors and patterns like that, it's a lot easier to start understanding. Just like what I did with Banished, where I was playing a video game, sure, but it taught me to look at myself in a way that I was suddenly like, oh my gosh, it's not that I can't play the game. It's that I'm literally causing myself to self-sabotage. And then suddenly that tricky version of me that like, I can't sit and get this right, suddenly opens up, and I'm able to work through it because I gamified it. I made the consequences less. And now I can start making better decisions because I was able to look at it from a way that like, well, a video game, if I lose the game, okay, nothing bad happens to me. But now I can apply that same lesson in real life, And it's like learning to work with your weaknesses. You know what I mean? So for example, with the lovers here, we've got this guy and this girl kind of like on opposite directions. And again, it's that same parallel with the upside down. That's kind of interesting, where it's like sometimes versions of ourselves flip, right? And I deal with this all the time with my hormone cycle, where I really change a lot as a result of my hormones. And sometimes I even feel like I'm two different people. But I'm still one person living in one universe, right? And just because I'm tied to a different version of myself more during one time of the month versus another doesn't mean I'm necessarily two different people. It's just one version of me is amplified versus the other at different times. And so learning to kind of integrate those experiences through kindness and softness, but also knowing when to have strength and determination. I think you guys are really learning to find that duality and balance within those things instead of trying to get them to integrate or lose identity. And this could also be a theme in your life as well, where I'm thinking of, so for example, in the US, people use this analogy that the US is a melting pot, right? But now, because of culture erasure and, racism and all this other stuff, they tried to use the term using a tossed salad instead. So it's about being able to honor people's differences, but saying we all have a place. You know what I mean? It's kind of that energy within your brain, learning to say like, okay, I've got two very polar opposite versions of me. and we could use masculine and feminine. You could use someone who is more outgoing versus an introverted side. I'm thinking with Elle and Will, two different kind of energies that show up differently. I just feel like there's kind of like that conflict that comes between you and another version of yourself. And so it's been very hard to kind of come to terms with maybe your identity or the split that happens to you sometimes, where you're just like, sometimes I'm this hot pink bad bitch or whatever, and then other times I'm this emo gothic, hiding in the corner type thing, or type personality. It's like there's almost like, rotating between these themes and environments. And again, that split can be caused by trauma. Integration doesn't necessarily mean erasing either one or either experience. Sometimes it means learning to live in the village together, aka your brain, that sometimes people are going to be in the upside down, and that's okay. They just got to learn to be able to survive it, while the other part is getting to do its thing. And I think of this, for example, maybe you're changing in social environments, where some environments you have to put your mask on. That means one part is going to end up in the upside down. How do you manage the upside down part when it's trying to survive, Because at the end of the day, safety matters. If you have to be in a situation like work or a family environment or something, sometimes it's better to just present a certain kind of way until you can let the other side out again, or vice versa. It doesn't necessarily mean anything about gender, but take what resonates, because I feel like there's kind of like this balance thing that you're coming to terms with and working through. Because this, like I said, it also just feels like energy of like moving towards a happier reunion, where Will gets to come home safe, and Elle also gets to be able to keep herself safe at the same time as well. They're both growing and modeling two different forms of how people respond to trauma and how they can have their own skills and uses, not spoiling anything for season 5, but I'm just saying everybody gets their ability to overcome what they've been through, and how they can use that to their benefit. Okay, so we've got Two of Wands and then the Ace of Pentacles in reverse. So I feel like for some of you guys, maybe you're going through financially a hard time right now, but this feels more of like lack mindset. Or again, I'm thinking of like the upside down, where it's almost like you're walking around everything and everything looks the same, but now suddenly you're in survival mode. Suddenly you're like, I don't trust what I'm seeing. So this could be working with a traumatized part. But to me, this is kind of telling me that you are going to go through periods, survival periods, you know what I mean? And there's something about like that loss that is what you're fixated on instead of the environments you're in. You know what I mean? So for example, it's kind of like being like, oh, everything's nice around me, but you kind of see the truth. So maybe you guys got traumatized by seeing the underside of society. So for example, suddenly realizing when you're showing up to that place that you thought was safe, and you're realizing, no, just because something looks good doesn't mean that it's what is advertised. You know what I mean? With this Two of Wands here, that's about like the beginnings of a journey, some decision making. It can also allude to the beginnings of some collaboration with another person, but it really has to do with, again, that beginning of a journey. And about to like, they usually is traditionally depicted as like a boat leaving the port. And so if anything, it's kind of like Spirit is saying that if you want to embrace your inner 11, you kind of have to step out of your comfort zone a little bit. Spirit is kind of guiding you to say like, okay, hey, if you want the person of your dreams, you gotta make yourself known a little bit more, or really start to be able to integrate the experience, because I think like with 11, she can't really hide the fact that she was traumatized. And maybe some of you guys are living with those kinds of scars in reality that, you can't fit in to this world. You can't fit in ways that you can hide things anymore. But how you show up with those scars and those wounds is just as important as what happened to you, Because, like, I think of Will, where it's like, okay, Will looks like a normal adult, but he's changed, you know? And being able to let go of the story of what healing from trauma looks like, healing from being different, because even, you might not have even thought you went through significant trauma, but the reality is probably if you picked this pile, you probably experienced being the other, being different, not being able to fully fit in, or having that aspect somewhere in you, or you're attracting the opposite of what you are, because like I think of with the Demogorgon, something I said at the beginning of this pile about like attracting your opposite. Maybe you have a tendency to attract bad boys or people that are negative. And you're like, well, why is that? And it's like, well, if you attract very dark, it's probably because you're very light. But there's a version of you that's still in the upside down that's got a tie to the upside down. You've got a version of you that is still open to these negative frequencies, that still is finding their way in. And I think of like, this is a spoiler, so, but it's not for season 5. But basically, Will has the ability to tap into the hive mind, and he's basically, with Vecna's, every time he's able to feel the mind flare, coming, he gets these visions. It's kind of like that, where there's a version of you that is still susceptible to danger because that version of you is hurt, it's wounded. And so when you have that scar, it's kind of like when Will starts to feel the tingles on his neck that something bad is coming again. It's because he knows that upside down is always there. And so instead of telling Will that he needs to be stronger, I mean, sure, he'll eventually get stronger, but, you have to have an 11 or some other people to help support and protect him. So that might be also a call for you guys as well, to start getting out there and, showing yourself to the right people so that way you can discover for yourself who's safe and who's not. Now, obviously, be gentle with yourself because you are going to experience some rejection, and I think of like poor Will, whenever he's crying in the car in season, is that 3 or 4? I think it's 4. Yeah, where he's like in California and he's really sad about, having a crush on Mike and, not being reciprocated. And it's kind of just like, yeah, you are going to face rejection from people that you really like, but then you're going to learn to accept yourself eventually for who you are, because then it's going to make it very clear who is for you, because the last thing you want is to, if someone else is meant to be with someone else, then it's okay to let that go and let that identity go, because then you can start to heal and actually find what's meant for you. I think of that within my own queer identity, where for the longest time there was a certain demographic of person that I had this fantasy that, if only they just loved me, then I'd finally feel like a normal human. And I realized that that person's never going to be attracted to me because of what I am. And that's okay. I'm not meant for them. I'm meant for somebody else. But really letting go of that fantasy and identity was kind of its own crisis in itself. And so with your Two of Wands, being able to even understand that whatever your identity is, of that fantasy of somebody or something that you can't fully see or understand that maybe you don't need to know the details now, because later on in the story you're probably going to find out why. It took me 80 years to figure out who I actually was and why certain things weren't working. And for you guys, you will have that identity shift and change when it's ready. You know what I mean? It's just going to take a little time, and maybe it'll take some years. I know, like, for example, 7 7-year cycle is important for trauma healing and other types of experiences, because of the standpoint that your cells actually recycle every 7 years. So you're more likely to be able to heal something after 7 years, because your body will have officially changed out all of the cells. That affects your mental health, that affects like a bunch of different things. But yeah, just understand that you are resilient and you can get through this, you know? And sure, you're forever changed, but that doesn't mean that you can't have a fulfilling life and you can't make the changes that you need and want in your life. You know, it's just going to look differently. And, you know, you're not alone in what you're experiencing. You just got to find out how to identify the right people for you. Yeah, I got distracted, so I was like, maybe you need like an ADHD community. You know, and same with like lovers. You know, some of you guys, you know, you're really obsessed with finding a partner or a person, but like the reality is like sometimes love's gonna take different forms. And I know you're really desperate for that relationship right now, and I think like it'll be a lot easier to identify them when you stop trying to perform what you think you should have instead of what you need and what you are. You know, I feel like a lot of this is just mostly like accepting who you are, and then you're gonna stop chasing the bad people, you know, and the people that aren't actually there for you and don't actually love you. Because I almost see like trauma bonding and entanglement. You know, I'm definitely seeing like some of you guys, you're so stuck in this distorted energy that you can't see yourself for who you actually are, because of the trauma distortion, you know, and being what you think is romantic attraction to somebody is really a trauma response binding you to somebody that's really dangerous. You know, I think of like Vecna and Will. You know, there's a lot of metaphors in that relationship. And, you know, just going forward, understanding that you're allowed to be, I'm hearing like something about like entangled, like right now, it's okay if your identity is still messed up while you're trying to solve things. You know what I mean? Just focus on being gentle and soft and safe, you know, and then you'll begin to identify things. Because I'm seeing with like my eye keeps getting drawn to the feminine figure in the lovers, but like I can't even look at the masculine figure. But when I finally did, I was like, oh wait, that masculine's not bad. That guy's safe and soft and kind and isn't dismissive of my emotions and thoughts and feelings. You know what I mean? And it's like learning to change that identity that like, no, not all men behave and perform certain ways. Not all women perform like that. And I don't need to put on a performance of femininity or masculinity to attract somebody, because if I'm fake, then I'm going to attract fake people. You know? It's that energy frequency. And again, just understanding that Will has a special instinct, and Will has to let go of trying to pretend that the Upside Down did things to him, you know, and that he is strong enough to keep going. You know, there's something about like, again, maybe performing femininity or performing being weak that's actually hurting you instead of helping you. You know, being outgoing. And I think of 11 when she first started off, and now she's powerful and owning her body and her spirit. And it's okay, you know? You don't have to be afraid of being seen as strong anymore. The only people who's really afraid of strong people are weak people. And guess what a lot of abusive people are? They appear strong, but a lot of them are wimps at the end of the day who can't protect themselves. That's why they would rather be bigger than what they actually are. So don't let bullies keep you down. Also, you've got peace, apology, and boundaries. Yeah, you know, there's some of you guys, you just gotta have a deep apology session with yourself, you know, for misjudging yourself or for not understanding how to handle you. You know, maybe you judged yourself when you looked at yourself in the mirror and thought, you're like, well, I'm just going through a phase, or maybe this is, you know, something I just gotta accept about myself, when really it's kind of like you can do both. You know what I mean? You can be here and there at the same time. You know, your inner demons can be lovers. Just because they're different. It's kind of like with your eyebrows. You know, they talk about like they're cousins instead of twins. Or cousins instead of siblings. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, you know what? If you got two different versions of you, okay. Everyone can still live in the same house and play by the same rules, you know? Just finding something that works for everybody. You know? And yeah, I think when you guys just start setting better boundaries about yourself and with your trauma and what you actually need versus what you're trying to pretend you are, you know, because you could be one or the other. You could be someone who pretends to be stronger than they are, or someone who pretends to be weaker than they are. It doesn't matter, because as long as you can find a system within yourself of boundaries that brings both versions of you peace, then I think it'll be a lot easier to overcome things and challenges when these two start working together instead of against each other. So there's like a train just like screeching outside. Anyways, though, guys, that was your reading. Thank you guys so much for stopping by. Please like, subscribe, and comment down below if you enjoyed this. Thank you so much for supporting my YouTube channel. And if you're interested in a personal reading with me, links are in the description down below. Wishing you the best on your healing journey, and I will see you all next time. Take care. Bye. Hello, everyone. You have chosen group number 4 with the bicycle sticker. And these are going to be your messages on what do you need to hear. Okay, so I don't know what's going on for you guys, pile number 4, but I pulled your pile out and immediately I just got overjoyed and I was giggling and I was trying to be like, oh my gosh. So I don't know if you guys are going to be like really successful financially, or there's something about like you're just gonna go through a stage of self-acceptance. It's just gonna spark so much joy. You know what I mean? I don't know if identity has been a strong thing for you guys. I know that was something we talked about in the last couple of piles, but like I really feel like you guys are moving forward and moving towards something really positive. I was also hearing maybe a potential partner. I don't know. It kind of feels like you're just moving forward. And I think you're just like forgetting about the past. You know what I mean? I was getting the image of like, so in Stranger Things, you know, the bicycle's important because all the kids are rolling around on their bikes. And it's almost like I see you guys just like, you're just moving forward, you know? And it's gonna continue to go that way for a while. I feel like you're finally learning your flow of how to get things moving. And yeah, you know, it's kind of like learning to swerve through the potholes instead of just being stuck in them anymore. You've got the World. Okay. You've got healing frequency, maintain your vibration, generate positive emotion, shifting internally, and black magic. Ooh, okay. Interesting. I feel like you're going to be standing on business, you know, because like at first I was like, black magic, like that card may or may not be about someone who's like doing black magic and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no, this feels really positive. Like, I kind of see with the way this image is drawn, you know, there's like all the net black magic around, but then this person's protected, you know? So it's almost like you guys are going to learn to start like having the positive vibes and things finally going your way, which is super exciting. Kudos to you guys. But yeah, I kind of feel like, you know, your version of a villain era is just you being healed and healthy. You know what I mean? Because, like, I know some people, their villain era is, like, actually villainous, but, like, this really genuinely feels like, no, you should have been doing that a long time ago. Like, that should have been the default. You should have never been nice to these people. You were just hurting yourself. That's self-harm. You know what I mean? We've got energy activation, connect to the divine through meditation and prayer. I also heard mediation, so maybe you're going to be reconciling with somebody. an important somebody. So again, this could be like maybe internally, maybe someone who's passed on, but it feels like maybe like a parent or a sibling, or I'm hearing like a rival of some kind. We've got awakening, a realization, shift, or discovery. Ooh, that is an important shift that's coming your way. It's you're gonna be more aware of something, and it's gonna help you make discernment. We've got communication or communicate and pay attention. Look out for signs from the divine. Acknowledge red flags. Yeah. So, what you need to know is like start being more aware, and understanding that, if you're riding a bicycle, you got to have all eyes on the road. You know what I mean? If you're going to be trying to make changes in your life, you have to be aware of things. And while it can be easy to check out and get distracted and go down different timelines or whatever, Spirit is really guiding you to say, hey, really start using the gifts that you were giving. I understand tarot can be really fun and a nice way to kind of just like touch base with the universe, but really like understand the gifts that you are given. I understand that a lot of people use tarot for relationships and romance and blah, 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 but really like some of you guys are really powerful intuitives, and like, what are you going to use that energy for? Why are you wasting time trying to solve everyone else's issues instead of focusing on what you can do for yourself in your community? People are waking up and shifting, and there's going to be battles ahead. You know what I mean? And those battles don't necessarily mean that you're going to be fighting people, but it's going to be about taking care of yourself, overcoming general obstacles such as like health or, mental health, or stuff going on with your car, or, being like, oh, something broke in my house, or you're having a conflict with somebody. All of these things, the more you're aware, the more you can start preventing things and working towards a healthier future for yourself. And again, I'm also seeing other people, because this isn't just about you. This is almost like you're in tune with other people, with this black magic. Maybe there's just something about the community you're in, where you're maybe the smartest, strongest person they got. So by God, if you've got the ability to help other people, you damn well better use it. Maybe you have the ability to use your voice for others that are not as strong as you. So the more you step out and provide help towards others, it's going to come back to you. But again, it doesn't have to be everybody in the whole entire world. Sometimes it's just got to be like you and 6 other people. That could be your family, it could be a friendship group or whoever, but like, just keep the people that are really good to you close and let go of everybody else. Because right now, as you're getting activated, you're divinely protected, and you were given, if you haven't already been given, I feel like some of you are, make sure that, you stay in your healing frequency. People are going to come and go and change, but like your core group of people, I think, is pretty set. And as long as you allow the energy to flow right, you're going to make more progress than you have in the past. So just pay attention to the things going on around you. Shift when you need to. And sometimes like you never know what you're missing out on that your intuition protected you from. Because I got this message at some point during one of the other previous readings where I was like, oh wow, I went through a health issue to distract me from some really awful shit that was going on that I had no idea. And that's okay, but like use your judgment and discernment of what is actually important to you, now that you have the newfound awareness. Ooh. Oh no. Someone was a bad person all along. Oh my gosh, that's so ironic and funny. Yeah, I feel like you're getting away from a dumpster fire. That's just, oh God. It's so bad. You don't want to know. It's so bad. Because I keep hearing like the word down bad. It's almost like you were down bad for like the worst possible person for you. Because we've got like the Emperor in reverse, so that's telling me, like narcissistic red flags, bad patterns. Somebody's dad was an abusive monster and someone else was trying to get away and they're trying to drag you into it and all this other shit. I don't know, like you just dodged so many bullets. In the past, you were making your spirit guide team work overtime, okay? You know, but this is where that old little black magic, you're like, nope, all it took was one candle and be gone, thought. Yeah, this might be a reminder to you guys too, like, please keep up with your protection work. You know what I mean? Like, ask the universe and your spirit guide team to protect you. You know, you can't always just assume that protection is there because, like, it's there, but also, like, you know, start integrating it into your routine, please. Some of y'all are just like, oh yeah, you know, I'm just gonna float around and whatever. And it's like, well, take a little bit more responsibility. I understand the world is bright and shiny, but like some of y'all, like light a candle every once in a while asking for divine guidance, at least, if not protection. From harm, man, oh man. It's like, to me, just like, let the people that are blatantly against you and out to get you become obvious to you, please. So you can turn the other direction as fast as I can. As fast as you can. But like, yeah, I'm literally seeing like you on the bicycle just being like, all right, you're going, and you're gonna keep going, and it's not like you're looking back and turning around, you know? It's kind of being like, all right, I just escaped the upside down. Now it's time to go. I'm seeing like watching movies or like, you know, just going out and having a good time. But also at the same time, like you're still moving. You know, I think life is going to move at a better pace now that you're not tied up and entangled to this bullshit. You know, yeah, because this also feels like maybe even masculinity and patriarchy as a whole. You're getting away from a paradigm shift that you needed to make where you're not prioritizing these people anymore. You know? Because also with like the emperor, that's not just about masculinity, it's also about authority. You know, and so maybe you guys are standing up to an authority figure, because I'm seeing like with a tie. And so it's kind of just suddenly being like, oh wait, this person isn't an authority in my life anymore. You know, this person is not the peak of what masculinity looks like to me, or I don't need to follow a king. You know what I mean? I've got my own life and destiny to live. I don't need to be asking other people for permission to live. You know what I mean? And then with the high priestess to number two, two might be significant because we've got 4 and 2. Oh, look at that. Literally the emperor and the high priestess. Super interesting opposing energies here, because the high priestess, she's all about intuition and guidance. And, you know, spirit is kind of saying, you know, let the little birdies guide you. You know what I mean? If you're sitting there feeling like, I don't think I should show up to this event today, don't. You know what I mean? I think you're now going to be at a point where you trust your intuition in a way that you're just like, okay, I don't need to have to get smacked over the head with insight. I can just be like, I just trust that something's supposed to go the way that it's supposed to go, and it's going to move a lot smoother. You know, I'm seeing like butterflies, you know, I'm seeing like little symbols, maybe a lizard significant, or a little alligator. But yeah, I'm seeing a lot of like butterflies. So those may be useful. Oh, there's one right here too. Yeah, so that might be a symbol for somebody as well. Yeah, somebody might have a grandmother looking out for them. But yeah, with like the 8 of Cups, you know, there's some kind of like some kind of an emotional fulfillment energy. One sec. Mm. Okay, my bad, y'all. So I just checked out the meaning of the Eight of Cups, and I guess the energy I was picking up on was, it's probably relevant to the reading, but when I actually looked at it, you know, Eight of Cups is still about that moving on and moving forward energy, saying what you have right now, it's not cutting it. It's not meeting your goals. And so to me, you know, it was funny, it was like I had to pause and check myself because I was looking at it and I was like, something doesn't feel right. I'm hearing fulfillment, and then I was like, actually that cup is the opposite. That card is the opposite. And so maybe that's a sign that if you're sitting there questioning your intuition and being like, oh yeah, go with the flow, blah, 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 and you're like, wait a second, let me check this out, and then you find out you're wrong, please go check out, you know, like again, I'm feeling like either a different pile, a different message, because there's something that you, again, due to this weird Emperor in reverse energy, there's somebody that is kind of waiting on your downfall or waiting on you to make a mistake, so then you have to crawl back to them, or they're judging you, or they're missing you, or blah blah blah. It's kind of like they're waiting for you to fuck up so that way you can go back in their trap, right? And this is where Spirit is saying, like, you know, take charge of your mental state, your emotions, your feelings, and pause, because this isn't it. What you think you have right now that's stable, it's not. And it's time to move forward and move out of those frequencies. You've got King of Wands. Again, the Emperor in reverse. What the fuck? That's the second time. Because we had, the last pile, we had the Three of Swords in reverse twice with two different decks. And that happened again here. Oh, look at that. High Priestess and High Priestess. What the heck? Double High Priestess, double reversed Emperor. Wow. Wow. That's kind of crazy, because to me, that if anything, that's pointing to even some high level stuff where, you know, right now we've got like the big gender war and stuff like that. And to me, this is kind of like that downfall of toxic masculine energy. You know what I mean? And authority figures. And, you know, again, I'm literally seeing like the kids on their bikes trying to navigate through all the stuff going on in their neighborhood, you know? And, you know, just because the world's falling apart, you know, there's still time to be a kid. There's still time to get through, but damn, you know, sometimes you just got to keep moving. With the King of Wands, that's telling me a lot about, again, this is like a more positive masculine energy. It's not the major arcana, but this is all about like passion. This is about creativity, initiative, and going out there and having fire and using that fire. So I'm also feeling like for you guys, you know, something's like with this fiery crown, I'm almost feeling like maybe when you start being more aware of things, you're going to have ideas, you're going to be passionate, you're going to be sparking, and you're going to be, basically nobody can touch you. You know what I mean? I think this is kind of like that fiery crown of knowledge and also spiritual wisdom and guidance, you know, being able to use your mind and protect it now, because you're no longer susceptible to the manipulations of these distorted people or distorted masculine figures. Because again, I don't want to say it's all men that are necessarily the problem, because it could also be women with internalized misogyny and different things, but like this worship of this false ideology is going to be going away in real time around you, and you're going to be finding safety while everyone else is kind of going through their crisis, midlife crisis. You've got Fate in reverse, and you've got the Ten of Cups in reverse. Yeah, so something Spirit wants you to know is that it's kind of like, oh, I'm hearing a song I wrote a long time ago, and like the quote I'm hearing is like, the life that you want isn't far away. You know, because like the Ten of Cups upright is all about like ultimate fulfillment. You know, kind of like what I was talking about before, where it's almost like there's this thing that you thought was perfect and really wasn't it and wasn't for you. But then the Ten of Cups is where you should be, but you got it in reverse, right? So it's almost like maybe it's that feeling of just missing the mark, or being like, I'm almost home, but like you always fall short. I want to read up about the Ten of Cups, since we're about touching base and making sure we're reading and interpreting things the right way. We've got reversed is missing loved ones, friction, miscommunication. It says, when reversed, the Ten of Cups warns you that you may have to make some adjustments and have some tough conversations, or go out of your way to address someone's presence or absence in order to achieve harmony and togetherness. If someone is putting the happiness and well-being of your personal community at risk, be sure to address it as soon as possible. Open yourself to authentic and vulnerable communication so you can find a solution or common ground. If a loved one is missing, find a way to include them. Wow, okay. Okay, Spirit, I see you. Yeah, I think that really falls in line with what we were talking about, where it's just like it's not quite home without you in it, you know? And it's almost kind of like reminding yourself that just because bad things happen, you know, the life that you want isn't far away. And people do love you. They miss you. And you're going to get a chance to go home. You know, like it's going to work itself out. You know, just remember how. Just remember what your experiences taught you and that you were loved so, so much in this world and in the next one. And, you know, just pay attention to those people that are showing up for you, you know, because remember when I was talking about with all the bikes? And, you know, I think of like, you know, sometimes whenever we're a fan of something or in love with an idea or an idol or something that ends up not being what you thought it was going to be, you abandon some of the people around you, you know? And I think that's a pretty common thing where, you know, you're dating that toxic person or that you're doing that toxic thing, and then all of a sudden you realize it ain't shit, and then you're looking around and you're like, dang, I neglected my friends. Dang, I made some poor decisions. This is kind of like you taking your energy back and reminding yourself of who actually is in charge, you know? And that, again, there's still a lot of hope left and love left for you, hun. You know, just because you broke free from that cycle doesn't mean you're never going to find a partner, never going to have that family and love. And if anything, like, make sure you're including people in your circle. You know, quit reaching out to the toxic, shitty ex-boyfriend. You know, he had his time to shine and he didn't. You know, he chose the path that he's on, and it's okay. You know, because you're going to have boundaries and you're going to have new belief systems, and you're not going to be paying attention to their energy much longer, because it sounds like you're going to have exactly what you've been wanting and waiting for right around the corner. So, yeah, just keep on your healing frequency journey. The life that you want isn't far away. And I'm so proud of you. You know, don't lose hope. Don't lose sight of the goal and what's important. And yeah, you guys are loved very much. And yeah, I can't wait to see you at the next reading, because I feel like it's going to be a really important announcement that's coming soon. Yeah. It's also okay to communicate with that person that you love too. You know, just receive and express the truth. You know? But again, not the toxic douchebag, the other one. You know what I mean? So, anyways, I'm sending you a lot of love. And yeah, I also heard, like, you know, you received a good impression on somebody. So, take heed, take heart. You know, this person's heart's meant for you, and it's gonna find its way to you. Okay? So, yeah. Just because fate's in the reverse right now doesn't mean it's not far away. It's not gonna be much longer. Anyways, y'all, thank you guys so much. I will. Oh, one more thing, because I keep being like, wait, stop trying to wrap it up. Healing frequency. I'm also hearing music too, so music might be a signal to somebody. So I'm like singing bowls, maybe sound frequencies, different sound things to help you with your brain. You know, I'm also thinking of Max whenever she was listening to that song on repeat to help her get through the upside down. You know, music might help guide you as well, which, you know, considering I wrote that song and I'm quoting it now, yeah, I don't know. Let it guide you. Anyways, I will see you all next time. Please like, subscribe, comment down below if this resonated with you. And send you guys a lot of love. If you're interested in booking a reading, links are in the description down below. I will see you all next time. Take care. Bye.